It might still feel like summer, but believe it or not, we are at the beginning of the fall planting season, especially if you are in North or Central Florida. August is the time to get many crops started so that they have time to grow and produce before the cooler weather sets in. In this video, I'm going to go over exactly what to get started so that you can stay on track for a bountiful fall harvest. Let's get growing. This first crop is something that everybody is incredibly familiar with, but at the same time not. As with many of the varieties I recommend here with the Urban Harvest, this is similar but not quite the same in the fact that it's a different variety. Now this one looks quite strange and may take you by surprise, but tastes just like what you know and are used to growing. And that is going to be winged bean. Now why we would start it in August is this is a day neutral bean, which means as our days start to shorten, it's not going to affect whether this plant is going to produce or not. Other beans, as the days shorten, think it's going to get cold and will shut down production. These guys keep on going. Central and South Florida can expect to harvest wing beans the entire winter season as long as a hard freeze does not take it out. So this is great to get planted in August so that it has time to get established and produce before that colder weather sets in. It is a pole bean, so you're going to want some sort of trellis or something for it to climb, whether it be a cattle panel, fence, whatever you have that works for your space. Just know that this does need something to climb up. Our next crop is one that everybody is familiar with as well, but I'm going to recommend doing something very specific within all of our choices, and that is going to be watermelon. Now, watermelon you may think is a warm season crop, and you would be correct. But if we plant a specific kind of watermelon, they will produce before the cool weather sets in. And those are icebox melons. Now these are much smaller than, let's say, like a strawberry watermelon, which is a Florida heirloom. Those are the big old giant ones that get huge. The ones that I would recommend planting at this point in the season are going to be the small, round, almost sort of single-size serving ones. The plants themselves grow faster and the melons ripen faster because they don't have as much to ripen. So as long as you select them and get them in the ground in early August, you should have ample time to harvest one last summer treat before the cool weather sets in. Our next crop is something that a lot of us like to use in our cooking. It's a staple for many people, and that is sweet peppers. Now, I do have an entire video where I discuss what sweet peppers actually grow here in Florida and why I don't really typically recommend a true bell pepper. The peppers that I do recommend growing are considered to be seasoning peppers, of which this here is a variety. This one is Suave Numex, and this is one that Johnny Seeds put out. I've been saving seeds from it now for 3 or 4 years. Does fantastic here, but they discontinued selling the seeds. Another variety that I absolutely love is Tarib. Cody Cove Farm does offer seeds from that, but it's a pretty hard to find heirloom. So if you can get your hands on those seeds, definitely do so. I also recommend planting Ají Dulce. Now these are a heirloom variety of seasoning pepper as well, and these ones I do have in my seed shop. If you're unfamiliar, I do have an entire curated collection of seeds that grow wonderfully here in Florida. Everything that we share in these videos, as well as a lot of other recommendations. So if you have not checked out the seed shop yet, I will have a link down in the show notes for you to do so. Now, seasoning peppers are a little bit slower to get established than many other peppers, and they're also wimps when it comes to heat. So I would highly, highly recommend do not direct sow these at this time in August in peak summer season. I would start these in little pots or trays, perhaps on a covered patio, your seed starting rack, whatever you have set up for your garden. Give them a little bit of protection from the heat and the sun. Otherwise, these will not do well for you at this point. But once these guys get going, you will be drowning in peppers, which is definitely not a bad thing to have. One of my personal favorite vegetables is not for everybody, but I absolutely love eggplant. They're so easy to grow here, and I love the taste. We do them as like an eggplant parm, maybe something you might be a little bit more familiar with, but we'll use the Japanese eggplants, the long skinny ones, and slice them up and do French fries with them, where I'll bread them and we'll dip them in sauce. We'll also do it with a little Spanish twist, where we will do it with a drizzle of honey over it. It's a very traditional tapas over there. Absolutely phenomenal. There's a lot you can do with it. One of my favorite varieties is the fairy tale eggplant. It's a lot sweeter and less bitter than many other eggplant varieties, and you don't have to peel the skin. I love to make a Moroccan dish with this, where I slow roast them with tomatoes and onion and garlic. They come out so meltingly tender. It is next level, and one of my favorite dinners to serve my family. Now, these eggplants, the fairy tale, the listada de Gandia, rosita, almost any eggplant does really well here in our climate, because we are exactly like where they originally came from. But those do happen to be three of my favorite varieties. If I were to grow them myself, that's usually what I would pick. So all three of those are available in our seed shop, as well as the ones that we've been talking about earlier in this video. Herbs are something that anybody can grow, whether you are in the tiniest of apartments or on a huge property where you have a food forest established. And it's something that is so incredibly expensive and flavorless at the store. My aunt and uncle actually come over here to harvest their herbs rather than buy it from the store, because it tastes so much better. Now, the herb that I would recommend starting in August is going to be basil. Now, traditional basil is going to be like your sweet Genovese basil. I found personally, in my experience, the purple basils are a lot more particular about like powdery mildew and the humidity stuff. So I wouldn't highly recommend those, although some people, if you're willing to baby them along, do have success with them. But my favorite that I like to plant is Eleonora, which is what this basil variety is here. This one is a lot more heat tolerant and powdery mildew resistant than even the sweet Genovese. Now, with a little bit of attention and care, these plants can produce for you nearly year-round in South Florida, and certainly into Central Florida. North Florida, the nice thing about this is you can easily keep it in a pot and move it to your patio, the garage, your front porch, wherever it might be that works well for you, to give it a little bit of protection when you do get those frosty nights. And this should produce even for you up in North Florida throughout the winter months. Now, one of my tips that I always like to remind folks of when they're first growing basil is that the more you use it, the better, but don't simply pick off leaves. Make sure to actually trim the branches anywhere where you see green stem, and that will encourage it to branch out and bush out even more, so that you have even more basil to use for all of your delicious recipes. If you found this What to Plant in August video helpful, or any of the others in this series that I do month by month, but you're still feeling a little anxious about actually making the choices of what to put into your garden, I do have kind of a next step, next level service, so to speak, that might be helpful for you. I have the Florida Vegetable Seed Club that I started 5 years ago, and I send every season 9 varieties of in-season seeds to your door. And they come with seed success cards, which are even more in-depth than the information that I share in these videos, so that you have the confidence to grow these plants and harvest and use them. We have options for raised bed gardens and green stalk gardens or container gardens. Comes with suggested garden plans, and my personal favorite component of the Seed Club is our private online community. I am in it every single week, answering everybody's questions about what's happening to my pepper plant, is this eggplant ready to harvest, or how do I use Chinese python snake bean. In the community, you're able to ask all of those questions that you're unsure of where to go to get the answers for. We open it in the month of August, so now is the time to sign up if you would like your shipment to come for fall in September. This next crop is the most commonly planted and well-loved plant for the past few centuries in the vegetable gardening world, and that is tomatoes. It's also one of the most common complaints or frustrations I get when I speak to new gardeners or gardeners who have come from up north and moved down to Florida and are trying to get acquainted with our seasons. They say it is impossible to grow tomatoes here. Because they're warm weather crops, they expect or think you should be planting them in the spring over the summer months, when in fact it's the exact opposite. Now is the prime growing season for tomatoes here in Florida, especially for South and Central Florida. Now there are different varieties that you can plant, everything from a cherry tomato on up to a slicing tomato, but this is the best time of year to plant the larger tomatoes. Now you can plant both, but in spring I only recommend growing those smaller cherry types. But fall, you can grow the more traditional larger slicing tomatoes. One of my favorites is Eva Purple Ball. I also love Amish Paste. Cherokee tomato is not the most productive, but so incredibly flavorful. There's Valencia. There's so many options to choose from. Again, if you're having trouble narrowing it down, I do have the seed shop to help with that. But now is the time to get these tomatoes started for an incredible harvest over the fall and winter months. If you've browsed the shelves at Home Depot or some of the local nurseries, you may have realized that most of the plants that I'm telling you to grow are not on their shelves, which means you're going to have to start from seed. If you're new to starting vegetables from seeds, you'll definitely want to check out this video next, which shows you exactly how I start eggplant, tomato, and pepper seeds in my own garden.